Welcome to the Muckster Show. The Muckster Show is brought to you by Kill and Time Productions. Music and graphics provided by If You Know, You Know. And now here's the man himself, Muckster.
Dang, Boot, you were in here almost quicker than me. So, I wanted to talk about something. First, a little housekeeping. Anybody who looks for it, there won't be a Toby show today. He's down at his grandmother's again. I imagine once school starts, we'll be back into that regular on Tuesdays. Anyway, let me tell you about a couple of people I've met in my life. One was the son of a coworker at the library. His name was Dan, by the way. And he was Down syndrome. And if you've ever known anybody with Down syndrome, I always hate to say everybody, any of those all inclusive type words, but any that I've always ever seen, they're usually the sweetest people in the world. They wouldn't hurt a fly. And that was Dan. And he used to come with his mother a lot to the library. When we had book sales, he'd come and help carry boxes and things. And then there's another Dan that I met after the library closed. I was working for a while in an office that one of those places that help people with bills and that sort of thing. And again, this guy was also Dan, and he was pretty severely intellectually disabled. Never sure what the right terms are. And he would come in once a week. I know, I imagine all over the country they have programs for people where they'll get them jobs and it gives them some money depending on their abilities. A lot of times they can become independent living. My brother actually worked for the company for a while that placed people, and he'd go and he'd usually do like the initial training, like they'd hire someone to be a bag boy and he'd go and he'd train them uh and then after a while they were, but anyway, so Dan that I'm talking about, like I said, he was pretty disabled. He wasn't able to be independent. In fact, he would come once a week to where I worked, and his aide was always there with him the whole time. And he would do different tasks, help with things. Well, it may not surprise people, but for a while, Dan was kind of leery of me. He just wasn't sure how to take me. And it's because if you know me, I make fun of people, you know. And now let me, in case anybody's gonna, I never would call Dan stupid or anything like that. I would just like joke around, and I might say things like, "Come on, Dan, let's get with it. Quit sitting around. You got work to do. Whatever." I would just screw with him. And like I said, at first, he you could tell he just didn't know. And I'm sure that's because he had a lifetime of people telling him he was stupid and worthless. But after a while, he noticed I talked to everybody that way. All the other workers, including the ones who was like my supervisor, or even a lot of times, when clients would come in and stuff. That's I mess with people. It's you know, just the way I am. But Dan picked up on that, and he saw that the way I was talking to him was the way I talked to everybody else. And I'll tell you, he loved me. You know, he just after what he could not get enough of me. Then when he'd come to work, he'd come to me, to assign him tasks and stuff. So if there's any little moral to the story, yeah, I know. Who am I to give advice? But you know, when you've been around since the Lincoln administration, and by the way, yes, secret girl, I will keep telling age jokes about myself. I don't care if you're tired of them, but I've always lived by the rule that if you can't make fun of yourself, don't make fun of other people. And I like making fun of other people. Anyway, uh, where was I going with this? Oh, so my advice is whoever people are, treat them the same as you treat anybody else. You know, whatever their intellectual capacity is, their, you know, the color of their skin, their religion, whatever it is. If you're an asshole, be an asshole to everybody. Just be fair about it. Okay. Now let's go to the title here, which I'm sure got some people's attention. I've said this individually to people or in chat. I do not like the word retard. And that's why I started off talking about the two dams. And the reason I do not like it, and there's some people that really use it a lot, and I was going to say, I was going to go through this whole thing. We all know people, but let's use names. The guy I see that loves that word is Todd. Anytime someone comes in and they disagree with him, oh, you stupid retard. But a lot of other people use it. I have friends that'll say it. I've told people I don't like it, but I mean, who am I to tell them not to say it? I also don't like when people throw that suffix on there, like libtard or whatever. And let me explain why. If you call me a retard, you think you're insulting me, and yes, that is your aim, is to insult me. But if you think about it, what you're saying is, oh, you're nothing but a stupid retard. You're worthless. You know, you're not just putting down me or whoever. You're putting down my coworker's son. You're putting down that kid that used to come to that office where I worked, and you're putting down millions of other people in this country and around the world who have actual intellectual disabilities. You know, do you get that? I've often used the example of I I had a boss on construction one time who used to use the insult, that guy is the laziest white man I know. And what's that saying? It's like, yeah, he's the laziest white man I know, but at least he's not black because they're really bad. And that's the same way I feel about the retard thing. You're not just insulting one person, you're saying you're no good, you're worthless, just like all those damn retards out there. So like I said, I've talked about this to people individually. I've mentioned it before. I just wanted to put it out there as a separate thing and let people know how I feel about it. You go on and do what you want, but You know where I stand. And Boot, Rabbit, let's Teresa and Killa, thanks for coming in. Oh, by the way, I saw this today with that ridiculous Finkel Live. Todd was putting down Rabbit because apparently Rabbit said he's not going to use that word on his channel anymore. He actually is such a fucking bigot that it bothers him that Rabbit is trying to be a better person. That's the way I read it. So, hey Don, stop me if I've said this before, but fuck you, Todd. And by the way, Todd, if you don't want people to call you a racist, a misogynist, anti Semitic, stop saying racist, misogynist, anti Semitic shit. You and your new best friend keep saying, oh, Todd said that, Todd and Muxter just go back and forth, and Todd called Muxter a pedophile. Well, Todd, you claim you never fucking lie. Show some proof that I'm a fucking pedophile, you worthless piece of shit. And that's not what we're here to talk about. Anyway, guys. No, Don, that's a fucking lie in case anybody doesn't see it. I did not date Susan B. Anthony. It would have been illegal. She was my student in sewing class, and that would have been frowned upon. And Dr. Phil slipped in. I'm signing off. If anybody wants to know what the hell I was just ranting about, go ahead and back. And I don't think this has been too long. Oh, geez, 12 minutes, but you get the idea. We'll see y'all later. I'm sure. I think I'm just guessing, but I'm thinking there might be some interesting streams tonight. See you, folks.
Three guys in a little room, just a beat and a plan. Not much money, not much time, but we're doing the best we can. But we're doing the best we can.